Donald Trump came back, did an interview with Sean Hannity, who's, probably his favorite host, and Trump was asked, what do you think your biggest accomplishment is? And his answer is the most pathetic thing I've ever heard.
What are you most proud of, though?
A lot of things. I'm very proud of the tax cuts. I hope they don't screw it up because the jobs, we brought back a record. I think so. We brought back a record. Well, it's still not going to be as high as it was. It was really 39%.
Right.
So it looks like it could be at 25%. I brought it down to 21. But I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of and very importantly, the regulation cuts. I'm very proud of what I did for the military. I've rebuilt the military. And I've added something called Space Force. It's going to be so powerful, so important.
Every single thing he cited there is objectively terrible for the country. I mean, listen, I'm going to try to be nice here. He could have said something that was less dumb. He could have said, First Step Act. First Step Act because we're giving a lot of people a second chance and they deserve a second chance and it's, it helps release some nonviolent drug offenders, and, that's the thing I'm most proud of. Could have said that. Could have said, hey, I killed the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is a, job-killing outsourcing deal. Could have said that. Didn't say any of those things. In fact, the things he cites are things that any generic Republican president over the past 5 decades would have done. So there's a great lesson to take away from this, which is, and this is the only place you hear this lesson, unfortunately, Trumpism is the exact same as movement conservatism. It's the exact same as Reagan republicanism. Trumpism is just standard establishment GOP politics dressed up in a slightly different package. Dressed up with mean tweets and fake populism. That's Trumpism. That's all Trumpism is. And this is in his own words he's telling you what he's most proud of. I'm most proud of the tax cuts. You're most proud of the tax cuts. 83% of the benefits of that bill went to the top 1%. 83%. In no uncertain terms. That bill is a giant giveaway to the wealthy. It's class warfare waged by the government and the wealthy on the working class. That's what that bill is. That's what that bill is. Then they literally talk about the corporate tax cut as one of the things he's most proud of. Oh, yeah, by the way, he's not telling the truth. He says, the rate was really 39 and I brought it down to 21. The rate was not 39. The rate was nominally 35. And by the way, it wasn't even really 35 because there's loopholes and deductions and no corporations were paying that. Very few, if any, were paying that. But he brought it from 35 down to 21. So he's bragging about giving more money to corporations at a time when they already have more money than ever before and regular people are getting hosed. Then he brings up deregulation. This is getting worse and worse as we go on, guys. You bring up deregulation? Okay, examples of deregulation that he did. Destroyed the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which returned billions of dollars to defrauded Americans. When big financial institutions would commit fraud, they would step in, do the investigation, and return money to Americans who were defrauded. That's what he's talking. That's what he gutted. That's what he gutted. He also gutted a lot of environmental protections and clean water protections. Imagine bragging about that. How could you possibly brag about that? Destroyed whatever remnants were there of Wall Street regulation. This is the stuff that he did. And this is the stuff he says he's most proud of. Most proud of. Another thing he did, dropped all the cases into predatory payday lenders. So there were Obama-era regulations that were kicking in, and there were some lawsuits going on against the predatory payday lenders, because they're basically loan sharks. He dropped all the cases and went back to deregulating the industry so they get away with whatever they want. And by the way, just so you know, probably the reason why he did that is that the predatory payday loan industry donated about $1 million to his inauguration in 2016. So it's I scratch your back, you scratch mine. That's as corrupt as it gets. That is the swamp that he said he was going to drain. He is the swamp he said he was going to drain. That's the sort of deregulation he was doing. And he's bragging about that. And then finally he says, we rebuilt the military. Our military under Obama was bigger than any military on planet Earth. And it was bigger than about 10 of the next biggest countries combined. And most of them are our allies. So we rebuilt the military from what? The gargantuan, bloated, preposterous gigantic position it was in. You don't need to rebuild it. There's no rebuilding happening. It's already way too big. Oh, we rebuilt it. What that means is I allowed the Pentagon and I allowed the military to loot the treasury. That's what that means. So all the money that we should be, using for social programs and all the money we should be using for infrastructure, for example, I let the military have it. That's what that means. That's what that means. I can't, it's amazing to me that he brags about it. We have 800 military bases around the world and he's bragging about, I rebuilt the military. It's like one of your biggest failures that you continued imperialism and neoconservatism as the operating ideology. And then he brings up Space Force. I mean, stop and think about this. Tell me how broken a society is when we don't even have universal health care in the middle of a pandemic, when every other developed nation does have universal health care, and instead of doing universal health care in the middle of a pandemic, we did Space Force. We need a branch of the military in space before we need to make sure our fellow Americans don't die or don't go bankrupt from medical bills. Tens of millions of Americans, no health insurance. By the way, that's another thing. About 9 million people lost their health insurance as Trump was president. How's that for a legacy? Reduced the number of people who had health insurance. At least Obama expanded it, even though it was a shitty corporate bill. At least it was expanded. Reduced it. We don't have universal health care. We don't have an upgraded infrastructure. We don't have free college. We have $1.6 trillion in student loan debt. And he's bragging about fucking Space Force. Space Force! So that's his list. Trump's list of his biggest accomplishments, the things he's most proud of: tax cuts that overwhelmingly went to the rich, reducing corporate taxes from 35% to 21%, regulation cuts which screw average Americans, spending a preposterous amount of money on the military as the country falls apart, and fucking Space Force. So listen, again, you don't need to take my word for it. In his own words. In his own words. He's just like any other Republican president. So anytime he does the whole I'm anti-establishment. Bitch, you are the establishment. And you're most proud of your most establishment maneuvers. It's incredibly pathetic.